What's happening, folks? Welcome back to Celtic Fans TV. This is just a wee video to break up the international break. We're here to look back at Celtic's season so far. I've got Chris with me, who hasn't been on a lot this season, obviously living in Canada. Chris, thanks for coming on tonight, mate. How you doing?
I'm doing really well. It's fantastic to be back and really looking forward to reflecting on what's been, an excellent season so far, all things considered. Thinking back to the summer and how late Ange came in to the picture, it will be really nice to reflect on what's gone well and where our opportunities might still lie as we move towards the last set of fixtures before, obviously, the big game on January 2nd.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I'll get you to sort of to talk more about how you feel it's gone so far later on, and I know it's early days in terms of progress, and the team haven't achieved anything yet. But it'll be interesting to talk about where you think we're at in comparison to where you thought we might be at this stage. First of all, Ange Postecoglou, manager of the month for October. And in other news, he's also managed to see off a Rangers manager already.
Yeah, I mean, played seven, 6 wins, one draw, which probably would have been a win had they let Juranovic be the penalty taker that day. I mean, to be fair to Giacomakis, he's scored 6 out of 7 penalties, I think, for his previous club. So it's not like he can't take them from the spot. But obviously, that was the only blemish on that 7 game, mini set of fixtures. And we were, excellent throughout. We have the best defensive record in the league so far this season, which is a significant improvement where we were last year. And also, if you consider most of the pundits think that that is our weakness as a football team. So for us to be, ahead in that stat is pretty fantastic. We've obviously scored the most goals as well. So it really has been a tremendous little mini run. And yeah, obviously, I don't really try to pay too much attention in what's happening across the city, but they're now experiencing what happened to us when Brendan Rodgers left, right? The Premiership talks, money talks, and some football managers are fickle and they talk out of both sides of their mouth. And that's exactly what Gerard said against Bromby. I'm happy. Do I look unhappy? Why are you asking me a silly question? And then boom, 1 week later, he's gone. Good riddance.
Aye, interesting. I mean, I'm shocked by it, but I mean, all I can say on it, we're here to talk about Celtic, obviously, but all I can say is I hope that their forward planning is as bad as ours was in 2019.
Mm-hmm.
So thinking back to how we've performed so far, what have you made of the impact of the manager and the way the team is playing?
Ange's impact for me was almost immediate. Do you recall the video that Celtic released of him in one of his first training sessions? And you could just tell right there and then the way he was communicating with the players, how he wanted them to move the ball, the pace of the play, the rotation of the front 5 or 6. And then, obviously we had some inconsistent performances in the first sort of half of the season, a few losses, which I think were, unexpected, perhaps in some fans' eyes, but it didn't surprise me that we lost some games. Like the overhaul in both players and in the system was massive. We also had some injuries that we were dealing with in the first part of the season, and as we'll talk about later, Kyogo and Jota have been so instrumental in all of the good things that we've been doing collectively. It's not a surprise that our performances and where we are in the table is kind of, I think it's above my expectations, if I'm being totally honest, because we had such a massive overhaul in the squad. Like if you look at the starting 11 today versus how we ended last year, I think there's only 3 players that are really left over from last season, Paul.
Yeah, well, that was my next point I was going to make there. If you look at the starting 11, even from that first league game at Tynecastle this season,
Mm-hmm.
I think there's maybe 6 or 7 differences there. You think Edward, Christie, they were all still involved in that game. So even since the start of the season, there's been a lot of change, and the overhaul in the squad has been massive. That brings me to my next question, which is about where did you think we would be at this stage? Obviously, we know that this half of the season, there's 3 international breaks, one after the other, in each month. Are we further ahead of where you thought we'd be just now, or do you think we're behind?
I do actually believe we're further ahead. So I could break it up two ways, actually, Paul. I think we're further ahead in terms of the performance of the team. Like, I didn't know if we could get to the types of levels that we've got to in certain games. And I would use Europe as a great benchmark for that, right? We lost 4-3 to Betis. That's easily a game we could have taken something from, right, in hindsight. Defensively, at that time, I think we were more fragile than we are now. And, then with the two results against Ferencvaros, I expected that we should win those two games, but Celtic away from home is never a sure thing, as we've come to learn over the years, Paul. So those were two fantastic results, but the performance away to Ferencvaros was an excellent performance. I thought we were absolutely lethal on the counter attack, and that's actually one of the biggest things I think Ange has done is he has brought in players that allow us to get up the park in 3 or 4 passes and get the ball in the back of the net on a more regular basis. And there was no evidence of that last year with the system that we were playing. So we're ahead in that respect. Maybe if I was being, a little bit narrow-minded, we're a little further behind than I'd like to be in the table. But if you turn the Livingston draw into a win, it's 2 points, and I would have been perfectly okay with that if you'd said, after 13, 14 games, this is where you'd be, with a brand new manager, new system, and a huge overhaul in players, plus all the back of the club nonsense that we've had with Dominic Mackay coming in and then going out, which everyone just seems to have forgotten about. It's like it's a non-story because the results on the park have really allowed us to focus on really what we should be focused on as Celtic fans, which is what the team brings us on a week-to-week basis.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great point you make. I've been talking a lot about that, how lethal we are in the counter attack. That's a massive difference. I've noticed in the team this season, and even thinking back, I know we were pretty good in transition under Rodgers, but the counter attack in this team so far this season has been frightening at times. We'll come to talk about the two main men, Kyogo Furuhashi and Felipe Jota, who have made such a massive impact on this team. We've seen it when Kyogo's been out the team. We're just not the same at all. He's so integral to the way this Celtic team is set up. His movement, so intelligent. We've talked about it a lot this season so far. 28 goal contributions between the two of them in all competitions. They have been absolutely massive for us, haven't they?
Oh, it's remarkable what the two of them have done in terms of their impact on both the team, how we play, and obviously results in such a short space of time. Jota is like he's like a Celtic player, right? Just the way he plays. He is willing to come inside. He'll go outside. He can go left foot, right foot, and he is a difference maker in a game where if you need some piece of magic just to unlock the game, he could give it to you. And whether that's him actually scoring himself or setting up Kyogo, it's been amazing to watch. I mean, Furuhashi is, I don't think any Celtic fan could really have imagined that we would unearth such a hidden gem in somebody like him. But he is a goal scorer, but you would never liken him to be an out and out goal scorer, right? But after the Rangers game at Ibrox, everybody knew that the best place to play him is right through the middle. He is not nearly as effective if you bring him out wide. And I think, Edouard got a kind of token last start. And I still to this day believe if the chance that fell to Edouard fell to Kyogo, he buries that because he's so high on confidence going into that game. And he's just a finisher. And it's fantastic to watch him play. But Martin's talked about this a few times, and so has Callum and Kenny. It's just his attitude and his infectious nature. It rubs off on everyone because everyone else behind the ball sees your striker working tirelessly to close down space, try to win the ball back, put pressure on the defense so that they make a mistake. You just can't you can't coach that. A player either wants to work that hard or they don't. And he has been a breath of fresh air. And if he stays healthy, he's probably going to score 30 to 35 goals in all competitions this year, which we haven't seen that type of return from a goal scorer since Griffiths' early days. And then Dembele, players scoring that amount of goals in a given season. So very exciting to have them both. And Jota needs to be signed immediately at the first opportunity in January, and Celtic should be very happy to pay the agreed upon fee to sign him on a permanent basis. And I'm hoping we can sign him for 4 years or 4.5, right? The half of the season that's left and 4 more. And chances are holding on to a player like that, if he continues to do what he's going to do, will be difficult. But that's our model. That has to be our financial model. And we've all become resigned to that fact. But while we've got him, just what a joy to watch.
Aye, he's a total entertainer. I think we're all on that train as well. I think we're all on that train for the permanent signing as soon as possible now. The thing that strikes me about both of them is so often when players come to Celtic, you talk about needing time. The immediacy of the impact for both of them is remarkable. Like they've both hit the ground running straight away.
Yeah, and I think what also really strikes me is that it feels like, and obviously, Kyogo's first language is not English, but I think they really understand what the club is all about and how beloved they will be if they play for the name on the front and not the name on the back of the jersey. And so far, there's not more any Celtic fan could ask from those two signings. And as you say, immediate impact, Paul. And, it is quite remarkable how we do struggle, particularly when Kyogo isn't up front and through the middle. We're going to have to pick and choose the games in which we maybe do rest him in. I don't know now in hindsight if the Livingston game was the one to go with, because they're such a difficult team to play against with how they set up their system. I mean, they are the definition of a low block. They're very well organized. But more often than not, we've been able to break teams down this season with the way that Ange plays. And look, Ange plays football the Celtic way. And I think that's why we all have taken to him as a manager. And also, the other thing I didn't mention in my opening statement, you asked me what I think about him. I also love the way he handles the media. Total class. Very smart with his responses. He's never dismissive, but he's also very respectful. But he'll put it the way it needs to be put, but without rubbing people the wrong way. And I just think, he also doesn't weigh in on things that he knows he shouldn't. Whereas sometimes I felt Rodgers could be a bit out of turn in the way he spoke about other clubs or other players, and just everything about Ange. He's the ultimate professional, and he gets it too. Like, you can see his relationship with the fans has really blossomed. And I think for those detractors who weren't sure why we appointing this guy, I don't think anyone is regretting it now. Regardless, for me, Paul, what happens if we don't win a trophy this year, I know we're going in the right direction as a football club, and I could not say that the previous 18 months under Lennon.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Just to finish off with Kyogo there, I would pick and choose when to rest him as well. I'd pick to play him all the time, and I'd choose never to rest him.
Yeah.
I was actually listening to the guys on 20 Minute Tims the other day, and they were talking about Furuhashi being one of these players who Celtic have come up against so often over the years against a team in Europe, and you think, wow, where did they find him? And now we have one of the players. We have one of those players where you think nobody had really ever heard of him because he came from the other side of the world, and he looks like an absolute player. It's brilliant for Celtic to be in the right end of that this time. In terms of the transfer window, then, if you look at the summer so far, again, it's early days, but it looks like we've had more hits than misses, which is quite remarkable, given the turnover of players and the fact that we don't have a director of football. We were unsure about how the recruitment was being done, how the scouting was being done over the summer. I think most of it, I think the managers had a lot of say in most of it, as you can obviously see with Kyogo, but probably with others as well. What I've written on my notes here, I've scribbled down from my pre-show notes that I sent you. I've scribbled in about 3 different places. Back the manager in January, and that is what they have to do in it.
Yeah, because I mean, if you look at the recruitment that we did, Joe Hart, very experienced goalkeeper, but also the word experience is really key, right? You're bleeding in a new back line. We know that Julian was out for a fairly, long period of time, but Starfelt's really come on to a game. I know he's injured right now, but him and Carter Vickers, and I love Carter Vickers. He's my type of defender. Big, brash,
Monster.
no nonsense. He will absolutely hammer you. And we were missing that level of physicality. Juranovic, I really like as a player. Obviously, ideally, he would play on the right, but what more could you ask for from Anthony Ralston? It's like a new signing. He's like a new player. He reminds me, I know it's a different player, different position, but he reminds me of Bobby Petta under Martin O'Neill. Completely transformed the player. Stan Petrov the same way, was a good player, became an even more amazing player. Didier Agat. If you have the right manager, the right level of coaching, the right level of motivation, you can find something in a player they didn't even know they had themselves. And so we've seen that with Ralston. But Juranovic, I love him. He is probably still the best option at left back, even though he's predominantly right-footed.
Yeah.
Then you go through into the midfield, and obviously McGregor and Turnbull stayovers from the previous team. But then your Rogic looks like a new player again under Postecoglou, which is fantastic because he's absolutely lethal in that 10 role. And then obviously the front three, Abada, young, new, but still you can see there's just so much growth. He hasn't even hit his ceiling yet. And Jota and Furuhashi speak for themselves. So just think about that from a recruitment perspective. But we still need to back the manager because you need strength and depth to be able to rest those players in games that you can feel confident that 4 or 5 changes will not affect the rhythm of the team or how the team is supposed to play in terms of how they're set up, to allow those players to be rested for the key games, because we're going to have those key games. One of the things we're going to talk about is the fixtures between now and January 2nd. We have a tremendous opportunity, given the turmoil that will be going on across the road, with them losing their manager and having to figure all that out, plus their fixture list. We have to capitalize on that. But you always want to strengthen from a position of strength. And that's been Celtic's biggest problem. Even under Rodgers, we were so dominant. And we didn't pay whatever it was, £4 million for John McGinn, right? Just look at the type of player he is. He would have been a magnificent Celtic player. And that was probably the straw that broke the camel's back for Rodgers. I know a lot of people don't like how he left, but we can't have that type of scenario again. So, let's build from a position of strength, back the manager. People might think this is a crazy number, but I'm looking for 5 or 6 players coming in. 2 or 3 that might be immediately trying to compete for a starting position or pushing those players, and then some strength and depth players, maybe even another young player like an Abada, who we maybe didn't think was going to, make the starting 11. But while he's been inconsistent at times, you can see there's raw talent there. And It's a very exciting time, but let's build on that and not rest on our laurels.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned 5 or 6 there. Give us some positions. I think in midfield we're still way short. I think possibly left back if we want to get Juranovic over to the right hand side.
Yeah.
Still weak in that position. Possibly another striker.
Well, so here's the thing. I believe one of the goalies will go out. If Barkas, I think for sure, and if we can recoup the majority of that money or even get him out on loan and his wages are paid, let's just give him an opportunity to play football. We took a punt, it didn't work out, but clearly he is a talented goalkeeper. It's just some players just do not work out. So potentially you could be looking him to move out. Obviously, agreed. Left back has to be addressed because Juranovic should not be the long term. And I was disappointed that we gave a contract to Greg Taylor. I'm not necessarily sure his level of play constituted it, but at the same time, if you don't have a guarantee that you're going to get another player in, then I can understand in one sense maybe why they did it, but I wasn't really so happy with that deal, whereas I was delighted with the Ralston deal because I think that's a good piece of business from Celtic. Definitely another midfielder. Whether it's in the 10 role or it's more in that holding role, Paul, I think is the question, right? Beaton has come in, done a reasonable job in there. But again, that's not a long-term starting player, and if something happened to McGregor and he was injured, you really would want somebody that could come in. So I think that's a role.
I think
then,
sorry, just on that, I think someone in between, not a 6 and not a 10, an 8. I know a lot of people don't like these terms as using numbers as roles, but that is what it is. I think we've got plenty of options in that deep line position of varying quality. I think McGregor's brilliant in that position, excellent. Beaton, indifferent at times, but in the last couple of games he's performed well. And Sorrow and McCarthy are also options in that position. The thing that worries me is that we basically have 2 10s completing the midfield in Turnbull and Bogic, and we need some different qualities in there. So I would say like a traditional 8, if you like.
Yep. And I think what we might see is maybe a Jota go out, or
another punt, another £5 million punt.
Yep, and then someone else come in. So, to be honest, don't think you need a director of football, because Postecoglou's short-term record with transfers, Paul, has been magnificent. Right, every player has come in and has made a contribution, or he has helped to transform some existing legacy players into his system. So I fully have trust that he can make the right signings. I do suspect that a couple of players might need to go out to help facilitate some of that, but that's actually needed anyway, because we do have some positions that were overburdened, and there's obviously a lot of money on the table there. Like Lee Griffiths will never probably pull on a Celtic strip again, right? That's just the way it is. I'm grateful we had him, but it's unfortunate that he let his field issues ultimately affect the way he was at Celtic. And obviously we've got Furuhashi. I think there is still a player there in Giacomakis, but yeah, probably good to have another striker. So that's four players right there that you're already talking about, and there's never a bad idea to have some squad depth.
Absolutely, I think that's a big thing that's been lacking so far, because again, not to reference it too many times, but the Livingston game where we make those 3 or 4 changes, we're not really in a position to do that because we don't have the depth of quality, and that did bite us. There's obviously going to be a lot of talk surrounding Rangers just now with the managerial change. Even though it's a cliche, Celtic have just got to take care of their own business. The manager said it in as many words yesterday. Before we come to talk about the fixtures after this international break, and then going forward towards the new year, we've got to just rack up as many wins as we can.
Yeah, absolutely. And if we translate October's results into November and early December, we're going to be in a great position heading into the Christmas and New Year fixtures, Paul. Right, we took the most points out of all teams across the October month. Hence the reason, Ange got manager of the month. So if we continue to just take care of our own performances, and I'd not pay attention to whatever's happening across the road and don't get caught up in it. And let's just be honest, Hearts are a team that are going to continue to take points potentially off of both of us, right? Good news is, we both do have to go to Tynecastle in the next round of fixtures. So it's going to be a tough game for both clubs, but I'm pretty excited with the position that we find ourselves in. But yeah, just take care of our own business and not pay any attention to the outside noise. And everything we've heard from Ange tells us that that's exactly what he does. We focus on the one game, and that's the priority. We're not going to let ourselves get too far ahead. And those are cliches, but that is ultimately what you have to do as a professional footballer. You focus on what's immediately in front of you, and once that's done, you put it behind you, good or bad, and you move on to the next.
Yeah, absolutely. In terms of the next round of fixtures, the next league match is actually quite a distance away. It's not until the 28th of November against Aberdeen. It's Rangers that go to Tynecastle in the next round, by the way. We've got Hearts at home.
I just saw that, actually. Yep.
Yeah, we've got some big home games. We also go to Tannadice as well. So we have got a difficult run in the next 3 or 4 league matches. But as I say, we've just got to get that consistency, because that's the problem for us. I know we lost those 3 games early on, and then we had the disappointment of home draws against Dundee United, Livingston, but we've just got to be as consistent as possible, because at the end of the day, I know that the derbies are massive, and that it's going to be interesting to see how this develops with their managerial change and what impact that has on them. But at the end of the day, the team that is most consistent over these 38 games will win the title.
Yep, absolutely. And, almost inevitably, always the most consistent team turns out to be the best team. And, whether we liked it or not, that was Rangers last year. They were incredibly consistent and they found a way to ground out results. But they have been leaking goals left, right, and centre this year. Like, there's no chance they would have conceded 2 goals at home to Ross County last season. So I don't think they're nearly at the standard, that they were last year. And we have almost definitely improved. But to me, that January 2nd fixture, Paul, obviously it's a big fixture, it's a New Year derby, but it's the psychological thing that I'm really intrigued to see. Because if we could get a win, I do truly believe that just in our eyes, we will grow another 2-3 inches taller and just have more swagger in our game, because we'll know, okay, well, if they were supposedly the best team and we just beat them, but we have to do it. We can't say it would be nice. We actually have to put up and shut up.
Been far too
we're
long.
at that stage.
It's been far too long since we beat them in a one-off game, and that is the next marker for us. That is what we have to do. We have to start winning these games again, to move forward. To round us off, mate, as I say, I've written down so many times here to back the manager in January, and I think we're all absolutely behind the manager. You can see it. I can see it at every single game. The fans are united behind the players and the manager. And again, the ball is in the board's court in terms of making sure the manager gets what he needs in January.
Absolutely, and I think the board, it pains me to say it, but they do deserve a little bit of credit. They did definitely back him in the summer. And whether that was Dom Mackay actually bypassing what he was told he could or couldn't do, because we really don't know the true reason why he left, right? I mean, yes, he said it was for personal reasons, but maybe that was the truth. And if so, I'm sorry to hear that. But he certainly enabled Ange to do what he needed to do with a significant influx of players, and ultimately a lot of quality players that have had an immediate impact on the starting 11 or the match day squad. And that needs to continue to be strengthened. And obviously, Julien will be back probably within the next 4 weeks, hopefully. And, he's not forgotten how to be a good football player. Obviously, his match fitness will be something he's going to really have to take time to build up. But he is a colossus of a defender and a very good defender. So that will probably feel like a new signing as well. And I've never had a problem with him playing the ball at his feet. And I think he can fit into that system. But absolutely, back the manager, back the club, give the fans, some more reason to be optimistic as we go into the last 4 and a bit months of the season. And hopefully we've got a cup final, to look forward to if we can take care of St. Johnstone. They're no slouch of a team. They're very, very well organised. They're a good team. But, if we play to our potential, hopefully we've got a cup final to look forward to at Hampden.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good note to end on, mate. That's it. Like this video, comment your own thoughts below. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. And we'll see you on the next video, which will be building up to returning in that semi-final against St Johnstone. Cheers.